So, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Money podcast. We're absolutely delighted to be joined by Adrianna Hegarty, who's the founder and managing director of Hegarty Properties and also the current president of Middleton Chamber. Adrianna, delighted to have you on this morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
Great stuff. So, how's the summer months going for everyone in Hegarty Properties? Is it
Yeah,
a very busy time for you guys?
very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or does it ever quiet down?
no, not at all. We're on a roll, very, very busy, but we're very grateful to be busy.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, look, as I said, I'm absolutely delighted to have you on, and I'm really interested maybe in the later stages of the podcast to pick your brain and maybe talk about the current property market environment and get some really good, valuable advice for buyers and sellers. But let's take it back to the start because I know you've quite, I suppose, an interesting and diverse kind of experience. You know, you're from Monaghan, left Ireland, moved to many different countries before coming back here and settling down. So, do you want to just maybe take me through that kind of professional journey? Where you first got your exposure to the property market and estate agency, and obviously leading up to today.
So I'm from Monaghan. So I got my first job working in an estate agent in Monaghan, and it was also the cattle mart every Wednesday. So that was quite fun because you had to deal with a lot of cattle dealers, farmers. So we were selling everything: land, sites, houses, new developments, and I absolutely loved it. And then my boss, Fintan Gunn, at the time, Gunn Auctioneers, he decided to open an office in Dublin, and I begged him to let me go to Dublin. And so off I went to Dublin, spent 5 years with Fintan Gunn, and it was great because he was a start-up in Dublin against all the big five at the time, and he's became number one, it only took him about 5 or 6 years, for a guy to come from Monaghan and open Dundalk. He had an office there as well and carried him across. So that was great for me because we started with nothing and had to get out there in Dublin and expose ourselves. And then after that, I spent 5 years with him. I went to Sherry Fitzgerald in Dublin, then Jackson Stopson McCabe, which was, I was selling country houses. It was a country house department, which was really enjoyable. And then one of my colleagues in Guns asked me, would I open an office with him, go in partnership to open an office specialising in the sale of pubs and hotels.
Okay, wow. Okay.
So we opened on Merrion Square and had our office there specialising in pubs and hotels because he had had a lot of experience in that, and we did a lot of that while we were in Guns. And that reminds me, one of our first clients was an Indian businessman from Oxford Street, and he walked into our office in London, walked into our office and said he had a couple of million to spend. And most people didn't take any notice of him. So because we were a start-off, I took him very seriously. So then he told me he wanted to buy a house in Ballsbridge. What's the best area in Dublin? And he told me he'd pick me up. I was very glad because I was driving a rusty old car, and he arrived in his Rolls Royce
Wow.
with his driver. And I always remember we went to view this house on Merrion Road. And so I showed him around, and then he said, I want to buy next door too. I'd like to bring my family over. And I'm going, wow. So we approached the owner next door and he bought two houses on Merrion Road.
Oh my God.
And then he asked me to look after his PR, and I became his PR agent as well as his estate agent. So I got him on the Late Late Show, front row seats with Gay Byrne, and that was a big one. And from there, I had him on the front cover of Business and Finance. So that was great for me. I just loved working on his PR. So then eventually I got married, and Pader worked with Diageo. So we were moved to live in Cyprus. So we moved to Limassol. And then while I was in Limassol, I was getting a little bit bored being the wife at home. So I approached the local developer on the island, and I got a job working for him. And I was selling villas, apartments all over Paphos and Limassol. And after that, the Gulf War broke out, and Diageo didn't want us in Cyprus, so they asked us to move to LA. So then we arrived in LA. He was looking after California and Mexico. And again, I was at home a bit bored, and I decided to do my real estate license. So I got my Californian real estate license and started selling property in LA. So from Cyprus to LA, from Dublin, Cyprus, LA.
Jeez, yeah, that's such a diverse experience.
Yeah,
So I suppose, you have Dublin, London, Cyprus, LA.
yeah,
How did you settle down in East Cork, or why Middleton? Now, I love
yeah,
Middleton as a town,
yeah.
beautiful town, great pubs, restaurants, cafes, close to Ballycotta and Youghal, some lovely areas down in East Cork. But how did you end up choosing Middleton? Or
So Padder was from East Cork.
okay,
So he was from Cloyne outside Middleton. And we'd always come back to Middleton or to East Cork on holidays. No matter what part of the world we were in, we were always back because they lived quite near the beach in East Cork. And so that was the reason. And then after LA, we moved to Chicago, and I was pregnant with my daughter. And we decided then, far away fields are green, we'll go back to Dublin. So we bought a house in Dublin. And then I did a bit of property consultancy. And then from Dublin, a job came up in London. So we moved to London and then eventually back to Middleton,
okay.
to East Cork, to a very rural area
Yeah, yeah.
at the time.
And did you find it quite daunting setting up parody properties first off, or was it a case that, I have the experience, I have the connections, and it's kind of time to go to my own? Or
Yeah, so when I came home, I didn't work straight away. I had the children, I was sort of I would say I was home a good few years before I decided to start up, and then I couldn't get away from property. I was just helping people naturally, everybody that I met that wanted something, and then sort of got out, and then I started from home, and it grew. The little old me in an office on the side of a cliff grew, and an office came up for rent in Middleton, and I thought, why not? I might as well go for it, and that's how it happened. I was quite worried, what was I going to put in the window?
yeah.
But I was very lucky. I approached a local developer and told him my story, and he gave me the sale of his development.
So very much like, I suppose, estate agency and property and financial advice, I always kind of talk about, the value of, let's say, having a network. And I always say that, a lot of our business comes from referrals, whether that's existing clients or, connections or a referral network, which brings me to Middleton Chamber, obviously. We're a member of Middleton Chamber as well. There's brilliant
Yeah, you're
organisations and
great.
great
Thank
business
you
owners
for,
there. So do
yeah.
you want to tell me a little bit about how you ended up getting involved with Middleton Chamber and became the current president?
Yeah, so when I started in Middleton, started the business, of course, I didn't know anybody. I was a complete newbie in town.
Yeah.
So I did join the chamber. And also I joined Network Cork, which was for women. And that was brilliant. And so I just stayed in the chamber. And then eventually, nearly 3 years ago, they asked me to become president. So I thought about it and I said yes. Yeah, very important.
And how important do you think it is for business owners to become involved with groups like, Middleton Chamber, Cork Chamber, Dublin Chamber, and kind of lean on those kind of services
Yeah.
to,
I think it's fabulous for networking and getting to know all your local businesses. And then I wanted to bring a lot of different things to the chamber in Middleton. So I brought in hybrid workers. So people that I would meet while I'd be out and about showing houses. And I knew by them, they were all had fantastic jobs sitting at home working, and how are they ever going to get to know people in Middleton or anywhere?
yeah.
So I brought in this where, yes, they could join our chamber, and that has been fantastic, and we're getting a wealth of experience from those people, and it's so good because and it is lonely working from home or sitting in a house on your own. So to come out and have a network and throw around ideas and I like to bring a point of difference, and I think it's a good education for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you alluded to, like I think over the last couple of years, particularly, people have got very maybe too comfortable to just sitting behind a computer screen or a phone or a laptop, either from home or the office. And it is important to still get out there and kind of shake hands and meet people and form kind of real connections. So,
Yeah, it is great for networking for sure. Yeah.
perfect. So let's maybe touch now on the current property market environment. Obviously, it's been a fairly volatile couple of years. Property prices have continued to kind of go up and up and up. Are you still finding that properties are kind of selling for, a lot more than their listing price at
They
the
are.
moment?
Yes. Yeah. And it is very frustrating. I know for buyers, they look at a property and it's on at a price, and then it goes way over, and it's tough. It's tough for the buyers, But I just think that it's all supply and demand.
Yeah, of course.
And I think there is a lot more supply now. And like there are 5 new developments in Middleton alone. And even in general, out even around Shanagarry and Ladies Bridge and places like that. So it is hard, but I think in a few years it will pan out, and so it will work. It'll
Yeah, everything is cyclical. Look, I know there's a lot of criticism out there that the display isn't where it should be, but you mentioned a couple of new developments, and I've seen it myself,
Yeah.
even around Douglas and places in the city. There
Yes.
is, yeah, and hopefully, look, it will sort out in time. But I
Yeah.
suppose with prices kind of spiraling up over the last couple of years, it is very easy for people to maybe bite off more than they can chew, or kind of get caught up in bidding wars.
Yeah.
Have you any advice for maybe like first time buyers who are maybe in a bidding war? Is there any kind of strategies that they should pursue, or any advice that you would give them basically when they're looking to buy their first house?
Yes, you must put a limit in place and sit down with your figures and don't get carried away. Try not to get emotionally involved, and you will find the right house. I've had people look at houses maybe for 3 years with me, and they're nearly in tears. And I'm saying, look, the right house will come, it will happen. And then you meet them, and they have eventually found the right house, and they're very, very happy. So it's just not to get overly emotionally involved, and not to go out, go over the odds if you can't afford it.
Yeah, because it's
Keep within your budget.
definitely, yeah, because like I think nowadays people are, I suppose they're so hesitant to just get on the property ladder that they often forget that property
Yeah.
it's a very, very long term investment,
Yeah.
and I always say to
Yeah.
clients, only buy a property if you see yourself being comfortable staying at that property for
Yeah.
at least
True.
kind of 5, 10, 15 years time.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose people that are, because obviously you in property a long, long time now, so for people that are maybe viewing individual properties, whether they're kind of new properties or maybe older properties, is there anything that they should be kind of looking out for, or any kind of red flags?
Yeah. Sometimes I find that people haven't really done their research on the areas. It's always good to do your drive-bys first, to go into the area, drive around, see what's around the area, and try and find out, ask friends, do your own bit of research. And then, of course, when you view the property, you're looking around to see, what are the radiators like, or the piping, or any dampness, and having a look at the showers, the bathrooms, the kitchen. You find people going around flushing toilets and turning on showers. There's no harm in doing all of
Yeah.
that. And again, the BER cert is important. And people do, when I have people putting their house on the market, I do try to ask them to put a bit of money into their homes to bring the rating up. So have a look at the BER rating.
Yeah, because that's massive now, isn't it? Because you see a lot of the banks, they're giving, preferential rates for properties that have BER rating of B3 or higher.
Yes.
Naturally, it affects your energy bills as well. So what you can find, I suppose, is that, look, if you're buying maybe an older property versus a newer property, it could have a massive impact on your bottom line, or what you're shelling out on a monthly basis through either increased mortgage payments, or, increased energy costs, or a combination of all the above. But no, that's some very valuable advice. And I suppose let's talk kind of sellers, because naturally maybe a lot of people are looking to either move location or maybe trade up, maybe due to personal or financial reasons. But because the property market is so challenging, it's very important for people to try to get as much value as possible for their own house, to try to bridge the gap on a new house. So do you have any advice for sellers on
Yeah.
how they can kind of drive as much value?
That is so difficult for sellers, because we all know that there's nothing out there to rent, not like beforehand where you would have. It was easy to go and rent, put your house up for sale, and then you'd find somewhere to rent. So now that's not happening. So people, they have to be really well prepared in advance. It's not a matter of clicking your fingers and just putting your house up for sale. There's a lot more detail than people would realise. So to come to an estate agent first, like us, and we will go through everything. Like, I'm very thorough in what I get beforehand, to make sure that nothing is going to go wrong when we do go sale agreed.
Yeah.
And one thing I think where people have to be important is, they may go along to viewings and they say to an estate agent, well, it would be subject to me selling my own home, and some estate agents will take bids from them.
Okay.
No, I won't do that, because you can be used to bid up a property and
Okay.
then get to the end, and then the estate agent can turn around and say, look, sorry, we're going to go with the cash buyer.
Okay. So are you saying that your advice is to maybe try to sell your own property first, is it, and come to the
Ask
market as a almost cash buyer?
No, I would go when at the viewing, or before I even would go to the viewing, I would say to the auctioneer, I want to know, is the vendor in a hurry? Would they wait until I sell my property? Because already a vendor could be in a chain. They could be buying for another house subject to them selling.
Yeah.
And we don't really want a third chain, to pull the whole thing together.
Yeah, yeah. And so I suppose, let's say, for instance, I am somebody who is possibly looking at putting my house up in the market with the view to changing in a couple of months' time. What's that kind of roadmap like for me, or when should I engage with an auctioneer? What should I do? I know you mentioned in the past that maybe it might involve a little bit of investment from your side to, make your property seem a bit more attractive to potential buyers.
We do a lot of setting up of the property. So I would go through everything from what your solicitor will need. I know it's not my job, but I do it.
Yeah.
And because sometimes,
And people value that independent advice, like, don't they? Even if it's not
yeah,
something that you specifically deal with directly on a day to day.
yes, it is getting their ducks in a row, and I want them. I don't want the stress once it's gone sale agreed. I want all the work done beforehand, and to go to their solicitors. People may not even tell their solicitor until their sale agreed, and you can't do it that way. No. You must get a list, but of course get the BER cert done immediately and have that, because that is a legal requirement. It is part of the contract to have that done. And then the title deeds are normally with the bank, and so you have to request the title deeds, get your solicitor to do that for you, and those title deeds could take 6-8 weeks to come. And then because houses turn around so quickly, you could be gone sale agreed, and the next thing you're waiting for your deeds.
Okay, okay. And I suppose, what do you find is kind of the most popular things that people can do at a relatively low budget to make their house seem a bit more attractive? Like, are we talking about a fresh lick of paint on the walls, putting
Yes,
some pictures up, getting some plants out in the garden, and
100%. And if you look at our Instagram website, every house we have, I sometimes feel sorry for people, because when I arrive, I feel maybe I'm overwhelming them
yeah,
with giving them so much. But it is so important, because it's that people will drive by first to look at your house, that first photograph that goes up on Daft. And there's so many things that we do, power wash, get your plants out, your welcome mat, declutter. That's the biggest thing, because we've all got years and years of stuff in our houses, and you just have to be ruthless and just get rid of stuff. And then I find a lot with elderly people who are downsizing, and they might have 60 years of stuff,
yeah.
and is trying to gently tell them, and you are downsizing to a 3-bed house. None of this stuff is going to fit in a 3-bedroom house. So it is there's a bit of, yeah, you have to gently work with people. I could be working with people a year before they ever put their house on the market.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
wow, yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
from a seller's perspective, like, do you find that you are at much more of a disadvantage if you have to sell your property first, or is it all about, like, the offer that you're putting up, even if it relies on selling your house first, or are they much more tempted for people that have the cash, let's say, and aren't relying on?
I will always talk to the vendor, and if you, as somebody that would have a house to sell, and you give a better offer, oftentimes they'll say, "Well, yes, we will wait on that person," and then I've already at that point I would have gone out, we'll say, to your house, and I would have you market ready. So I'm saying to my seller, David is ready to go. All I have to do is push the button. Sometimes I get the photography done in the summertime when everything's looking well, blue skies, everything's gorgeous. We get you to set up your house for one day, and we have that photography ready until the time that you see a house that you want.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know there's some really valuable advice there. So it
Yeah.
is really about having that kind of, liaising with various people and having that kind of open line of communication between buyers and sellers and estate agents, isn't it? And
Yeah.
everyone having their ducks in a row, essentially.
Yeah, and we are very approachable. I don't mind. I was with people yesterday, even thinking about it, and I was sort of saying to them, am I giving you too much? Is this too much?
Yeah.
But I knew the minute I walked through the door, they needed it. They needed my help. There was no way I could go to the market the way their house was.
Yeah, because I know it was really interesting. I think you gave me the example before of maybe it was it that you were selling two properties in the same estate and one went for a lot more because they kind of followed your advice and
Yeah,
they'd done a couple of
that's
things to the
true.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. And the other house was a lot cheaper, but it was exactly the same house. And but mine was very well put together, and it's all cosmetically done.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It just goes back.
And I suppose you're paying so much for property now that why should you have to come in and paint a house or fix something in a house that you're moving into? It should be for what you're spending on a house. It should be right.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like it's first impressions, like, and people are so busy nowadays with work and family life. I suppose this kind of perception of having a house that's completely turnkey, it just appeals to them and they're maybe willing to pay a little bit more,
absolutely,
So.
absolutely.
Perfect. Well, look, there's some really good advice there, Adriana. But before we wrap up, I suppose what does the future hold for Hegarty Properties?
Yeah, we're very busy with a lot of new developments on the way, thank God.
Yeah.
We're very, very lucky. And yeah, and we have a good team, which is really, really important. I have a great team behind me, and we're looking forward to the future. And everything is so new with Instagram and podcasts and everything. So that's all
Yeah,
exciting.
you're quite active in that space, I see, which is important. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. Well, look, I wish you the best of luck for the future. Thanks so much for having us on, Adriana. Look, and we might get you on again.
Oh, thank you very much,
Thank you.
David. Thank you.